Firstly, reports in Italy and Germany have 2 and 3 teams in breach of F1's cost cap. What can you tell us about that?
Mercedes, Ferrari, and Red Bull employed enormous expenditures for many years to keep a tight grip on first place in the Formula One standings. However, new regulations limit investment, and smaller teams now believe they can compete. Why would you do anything if there was no prospect of success? Let's check it out. It makes no sense to enter the tournament already knowing that you would place last. Gunther Steiner, the principal of the Haas F1 team, described it as insane. The lesser teams faced a dual challenge. First, they had little money to spend on building and testing their cars, or hiring experts who could come up with solutions, even though they could afford the essential costs of competing, such as tires, petrol, and team travel. Otmar Zafnauer, CEO of the recently relaunched Aston Martin Cognizant, one of F1's smallest teams with roughly 550 personnel, says, "There are years where we had $5 million, $6 million, and I'm sure the others had hundreds of millions of dollars of discretionary spend on car improvement." In contrast, the strong companies that own the best teams justified their exorbitant prices as a marketing outlay to ensure that their logos were prominently displayed on TV. The FIA has now done everything it can to close this loophole. It has been customary for F1 teams to engage top technical personnel to operate in distinct divisions on technological initiatives to capitalize on skills acquired through the larger corporate sector. The newly imposed TD45 is retroactive to January 1 of this year and goes into effect right away. The FIA refers to it as a technical regulation and a cost cap administrative clarification that addresses the issues of outlays for non-F1 activity. Concerns that some might be abusing the system by using these divisions to improve F1 knowledge outside of the cost cap and then giving that information back to their teams for free prompted the FIA to take action. The new TD makes it clear that the value of any such occurrences will be included in the cost cap and explains how the FIA would interpret the expenses of any technology or intellectual property developed by these non-F1 firms and subsequently used by the F1 team. This is in an effort to close a possible hole in the cost cap legislation. F1 employed a model for income distribution that gave winning teams a far larger share of the money received from sources like broadcast rights and race hosting fees than it did to teams at the bottom of the standings. Additionally, sponsors showed little interest in working with teams who frequently failed to place their drivers on the podium. The smaller teams dropped lower in the standings without a war fund to upgrade their vehicles. Teams like Manor and Force India, which both went bankrupt, as well as Lotus, which was forced to sell for pennies on the dollar, were unable to break free of the feedback loop. The existential crisis set in. Steiner asks, if you have no chance, why would you do it? While acknowledging that Haas's decision to recruit the driver Nikita Mazepin, whose father owns Uralkali, last year was influenced by the likelihood of securing Uralkali as a sponsor. Knowing you'll finish last before the competition even begins doesn't make sense. That would be insane. Smaller teams like Aston Martin, Haas, and Williams have room to increase their spending, while the new budget cap is slightly below what a midfield team like Alpine, which is supported by Renault, generally spends. On the other hand, Mercedes, Ferrari, and Red Bull won't be able to solve issues by spending money anymore. The reward might go more towards the people who have more creativity than the people who just burn the midnight oil. Alpine said if everyone suddenly had the same number of hours to spend, personnel, and resources to put to work. The chief engineering officer post-marshal held at Red Bull was stated as having a broader scope across the Red Bull company, including powertrains, even though he was no longer a part of the current F1 team's program. Christian Horner, the CEO of Red Bull, claimed that if he were to return, it would be challenging to defend his pay within the cost cap because more inexperienced, less expensive engineers could perform the same duties. This kind of problem is not covered by the current cost cap legislation, of which related party transactions are the applicable component. The new technical guidelines aims to make this more enforceable and less ambiguous. Through the explanation of a technical directive, the FIA recently took a first step towards addressing a problem that will likely be included in the actual regulations in the future. Additionally, it is customary to switch out design and technical staff between F1 projects, like car modifications and non-F1 jobs. With this strategy, their services might be charged to either company based on the work delivered. These personnel can be questioned by the FIA to determine whether their work had any overlap that wasn't addressed by how it was classified. While teams are free to keep their special initiatives and divisions, TD45 states that any IP from them that is used by F1 teams must be accounted for under the cost cap and cannot come from free sources inside the same corporation. F1 knowledge can still be freely given to technical divisions and applied to unrelated commercial needs. A senior F1 insider with first-hand knowledge of the situation, however, claimed that TD45 had already been put into use and was making its rounds. The source also said that it had an effect. With the introduction of TD45, the FIA is reportedly making a much more extensive effort this year to analyze team spending as part of its cost cap probe. Last year, Red Bull was penalized $7 million and given less time to complete wind tunnel development for exceeding this budget cap into 2021. The $4 million overspend was mostly caused by a string of administrative errors, along with some disputes about whether expenses, like catering costs, specific components, and HMRC returns, would be included in the budget cap. A vote of confidence in a system is shown by a significant financial fine and more restrictions on their ability to grow aerodynamically. A fine will be assessed if you go over the predetermined sum. Prior to the F1 Hungarian Grand Prix, reports that up to 3 F1 teams may have violated the 2022 budget surfaced. The FIA is currently looking into these claims. The report stated that as part of their investigation, the FIA made cold calls to manufacturers, conducted staff interviews, and reviewed WhatsApp conversations. Although none of the teams have been told of their certification status, the FIA issued a statement saying, "In light of recent reporting, it is to emphasize the current process leading up to financial regulatory certification for the teams. A period will be needed for the review's finalization once the auditing fieldwork, which is still underway, is slated to end in the future weeks. The Cost Cap Administration will formally communicate its findings in accordance with the procedure outlined in the financial regulations. The time frame is intentionally not fixed in order to not prejudice the robustness and the effectiveness of the review. There is not and has never been a set deadline for certification." Even said, there are some promising early indications that clubs will play more fairly. Aston Martin is constructing a new plant, planning a new wind tunnel, and intends to hire another 250 or so people. Williams, whose founding family was pressured into selling the team last year due to financial difficulties, has received a cash infusion from new owner Doralton Capital, according to team CEO Jos Capito. This money is being used, according to Capito, to modernize the organization's IT infrastructure and machine shop as it redefines the Williams brand and gets ready to court new sponsors. These smaller teams think they may finally start to pick up speed, especially with the significantly altered technical restrictions that will be introduced next year, which will require all 10 Formula One teams to virtually start over with their car designs. "It's no longer a dream," says Steiner. "It's a lot of labor." Based on the performance in the previous season, the ATR limitations gives teams lower in the Constructors' Championship more aero testing hours. The current standings are revised mid-season to reflect this. According to Schaffnauer, a similar approach may be utilized for capital expenditures to provide back-office teams with an equal playing field in terms of infrastructure. Are these innovations good ones? Or does it benefit teams with more intelligent members? Please share your opinions in the comment section below. If you like this video, like, share, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell to get the latest videos. See you soon!